Oh man. But so you know, I've watched quite a bit of black pill content. You know, guys like Wheat Waffles, Black Pill TV, etc. And one thing I notice about these guys is that, you know, they always make the claim that MGTOW is a cope. MGTOW is a cope. Now, me, right? I'm Mr. MGTOW, Mr. Wizard. Obviously, I take great offense to that. I'm triggered. I'm upset. And so I got to defend myself and my brothers against this heinous accusation, right? But there is a point to be made about the connection between Black Pill and MGTOW. And some MGTOW guys might not even like what I'm going to say about it, but we're going to get there, right? But before I go into why MGTOW is not a cope for most guys, right? I want to talk about my own decision to go my own way. And this goes back to when I was in my late teen, like I would say anywhere from like 16 to 20. That's when I was really having these thoughts of, I remember distinctly thinking that maybe I don't want to have kids. I don't want to get married. And is dating really worth it? That was basically what I was thinking. You know, I had it in my mind that like to me, I saw being single and being a virgin as a positive thing in its own way. I saw that there were certain advantages to it. Especially when you look at all the disadvantages and issues that tend to go with dating and sex. Like, I mean, I could go on a whole rant about the endless amounts of bullshit that men and women throughout history have gone through as a direct result of sexual indulgence. So why I was having these thoughts is not like some big mystery, but it's important to note that my decision was not only based on the modern state of women and relationships, but it was also an understanding of my own value relative to the dating market and the results that I could expect given maximum effort. So for me, it wasn't just, oh, women ain't shit, dating is never worth it. That was only half of it, right? And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying like, oh, all women are shit or nothing like that. I'm just saying like, obviously the quality of men and women has gone down in recent years. Like let's all be real about that shit. The quality of men and women has gone down, and there's a lot of toxic relationships going on in the world right now, especially in our part of the globe. But it wasn't just that. I also understood that because of my own lack of attractiveness, because I wasn't Chad, back then Chad didn't exist, but because I wasn't that guy, because I knew I wasn't that guy, I knew that I would have a harder time. So it was a combination of things. It was the combination of the state of modern women and dating, but also understanding that my attractiveness level, while not incel, was not high enough for me to have what I would consider good options in dating. And so that was really the driving force behind me deciding to go my own way all those years ago. Now, I'm going to circle back to that later on, but I just want to make that point now. But let's get to why MGTOW is not a cope, right? And so my argument is simply this. In order for MGTOW to be a cope, that would mean that you have no options whatsoever, because you can't walk away from something that isn't there. So when people say, like, you'll hear this a lot, right? Oh, they didn't go their own way, they were sent their own way, right? Like nobody wanted you, so you went your own way. That is the core of the argument that MGTOW is a cult. Nobody wants these guys to begin with, right? These guys couldn't get fat, sloppy, 400-pound, one-legged, bald head single moms, right? That's basically what they're saying. And I think that it's really kind of ridiculous. Like now, if you're saying these guys couldn't get hot women or models and shit, look, fine. That's I'll give you that. But to say that these guys have no options, like these guys couldn't get the fattest, sloppiest, trollest, whatever. All right, now that's reaching. And I think the reason why people tend to see MGTOW as a cope is because the men who typically gravitate towards the movement are average, more or less like guys like myself, right? I'm very fucking average. What the hell was that? But I'm very fucking average, right? Even the guys on my channel, like you guys, I'm always rated anywhere between 4 and 6. Consistently is 4 and 6. So that means I'm dead average, right? 4 or 6, like slightly below average or slightly above. That's how I'm generally assessed by most people, right? Or as we waffles would say, normie or sub 5, right? And so when you're in that category of men, the options that are available to you are almost never visible to the naked eye. And so what I'm saying is, I think when people look at the guys who are going their own way, they see, okay, these lonely, not lonely, but these guys who are alone, and it's not like any women are really surrounding them or like chasing them down anyway, so they don't have options. How could you have gone your own way when you don't have options? And see, I'm the perfect example of this. If you guys remember, I did a Nightwalk vlog called, being a 28-year-old virgin, right? Not too long ago. And one of the things that I said was, it's amazing how no women are checking for me, right? Like at this very moment, no women gives a fuck about me. Women don't care about me. But if you've also been following my journey, you know that throughout my life, I've had opportunities to lose my virginity here and there. Not a lot, and typically with fat, ugly, troll, gorilla looking bitches, but I've had opportunities to lose my virginity. Obviously, I turned those opportunities down, but those were options, right? You can't take that away from me. You can't take away the opportunities that I had just because I turned them down. I had options and I turned them down. I went my own way, right? And see, my whole point is, most people who look at me in full, they're not going to say, oh, this nigga can't get pussy, he's coping, right? Nobody would say that. Like, my friends know I could get bitches. You guys, like, most people know, like, okay. And the thing is, I'm not much better than the average guy claiming to be MGTOW, though, right? Like, I'm just now getting a job and a car, like, within the year or so, right? I'm just out in the open expressing my journey as a man who happened to embrace the single virgin lifestyle. And so what I'm saying is, on the surface, it looks like I have no options. Like, but if you know me and you know my journey, you would know that I've had opportunities, and you would know that more than likely, if I put effort into dating, I could probably get more options, right? But because I've gone my own way, these options are not visible at all. But let's move on to the next point, right? So how is the black pill and MGTOW connected? And this goes back to my decision all those years ago. Remember what I said? It was not me saying, oh, women are not worth it, fuck these bitches. That was only half of it. But the other half was understanding that, look, I'm not very attractive. It's going to be harder for me, so much harder that it's not going to be worth it. The juice isn't worth the squeeze. That old MGTOW wise saying created by whoever the fuck, right? And so when I look at MGTOW, It's essentially guys feeling as if the dating options that are available to them are not worth engaging with, right? I mean, that's MGTOW in a nutshell. If you're going your own way, more than likely, you feel like the dating options that are available to you are not worth engaging with. But you could make the argument that your options are bad because you're just not attractive enough to have those good options. Because let's be honest, Chads are not the ones going their own way. Why would you go your own way if you're a high value man who has a high number of quality dating options that are easy to engage with? Just like what Wheat Waffles was saying about, you know, when you run across a girl who has a high interest in you and how it's easy and smooth, Chads have that all the time. Why would you go your own way when that's your experience? And so, like I said, the core point of MGTOW is the juice isn't worth the squeeze. But it's not that women are the only problem. It's also your own lack of attractiveness that prevents you from having a good time in dating. And I know maybe that sounds like I'm being harsh against like MGTOW or whatever, but I'm not. Like, it's not a knock against MGTOW or average dudes, because everybody can't be Chad. Everybody can't be high value. You know, a lot of the things that make you inferior to other men on the dating market are simply just things out of your control. It's stuff like, you know, race, skin color, your height, facial structure, penis size, your body frame, voice, hairline, etc. It's a lot of the things that make you low value or have worse options than other guys are completely out of your control. So it's not like you're just bad person because you don't have good dating options, you know. And even things like certain personality traits can be hard or almost impossible to change. And of course, you know, look, everybody can't be a fucking rich social media influencer either. So again, a lot of this shit is just out of your control. But my point is this, though. I don't think any of this undermines the idea of MGTOW or that you've gone your own way, because MGTOW is all about walking away from the bad options that are available to you. Why those options are bad is a separate conversation altogether. MGTOW, let me say it again. MGTOW is about walking away from the bad options that are available to you. Why those options are bad is a separate conversation altogether. If you want to make that argument, if you want to make the argument that your options are bad because you're sub 5 or genetically inferior, I will give you that. You can have that and more, right? That's a sound argument. Your options are bad because you're sub 5, right? That's a sound argument. I'll give you that. But you cannot call MGTOW a cope when there are options on the table. MGTOW would only be a cope if you had no options. And again, if you can fuck 400 pound, 500 single mothers, toxic, whatever, if you have that, that's an option, right? And so I think a good example, and I hope my black brothers don't get mad at me for using this as an example, but it's almost like the bus boycotts in the 1950s. If you don't know, the bus boycotts, it was started when Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat to a white man. If you didn't know, back in the 50s, there was segregation. And so on the buses, black people had to sit in the back of the bus and white people were able to sit in the front. And so what was essentially happening was that black people were getting inferior service because of our skin color, because of our genetics, because of things that were out of our control, right? And so when black people got fed up with this, they said, look, we're going to stop riding the bus and we're going to carpool. We're going to find any other way to get where we need to go, but we're not going to tolerate inferior service because of the color of our skin anymore. And so these bus boycotts were extremely effective because the bus companies were they made a lot of money off black people. Even though they were giving us inferior service because of our skin color, they made a lot of money off us. And so when black people stopped riding the bus, it had a significant impact on the bus company's income. And so this was one of the first like protests and movements that helped catapult the civil rights movement into the mainstream, and undo a lot of things like Jim Crow laws and segregation and whatnot. But you could almost make a comparison to, and I know, like, black people, please don't hate me for making this comparison, but it's kind of similar. MGTOW and the bus boycotts, right? Again, the similarity between MGTOW and the bus boycott is that you receive inferior service, or you have inferior options because of your genetics, because of things out of your control, because you're not Chad, because you're not white, right? And so you get fed up with this and you say, you know what, this shit ain't worth it anymore. I'm going my own way, or I'm carpooling with Dave down the street, right? And so what I'm saying is, calling MGTOW a cope is like calling the bus boycotts a cope, right? It's very similar. Again, you have inferior options because of things that are for the most part out of your control, right? You're not Chad, and you'll never be Chad. You're not white, you'll never be white. And so instead of tolerating it, you say, fuck it, I'm going my own way. I'm not dating. I'm not settling for these options. And that's why MGTOW is simply not a cope. You have options. It's just inferior options. And it doesn't matter why it's inferior. It's just, that's what it is. And so what people try to say, and I think I hate to do it, but I got to pull another civil rights protest. I got to put another one into this. But it's like, when you look at the sit-ins, for example, now the sit-ins were different from the bus boycotts. See, black people could ride the bus. They just received inferior service. But there were some places where black people were not allowed. So how do you protest something that you're not allowed to participate in the first place? You got to go there, and you can't say, I'm not going to the place that I'm not invited to, right? And see, that's what people try to act like MGTOW is. They try to act like MGTOW is like the fucking sit-ins where you weren't invited, so you got to force yourself in there and stay there against their wishes, right? When in reality, MGTOW is more like the bus boycotts, where you had inferior options and refused to engage with them because of whatever reason, right? And here's my final point on this. People will never appreciate the trouble that these men have saved themselves, because you never know what could have been. People won't appreciate what you avoided. I look at me and my best friend, for example, right? I'm Mr. Single Virgin MGTOW guy. He's fucked plenty. He's fucked the plenty. Let's put it like that. But right now, he's in a very toxic relationship with a single mom, 2 kids, 2 different guys, two kids by 2 different niggas. And, I mean, she is cuckoo. She is crazy. And so, but the thing is, if you were to rate both of us, right, me and my friend, you could say we're both around like normie tier, right? Just based on looks. In fact, some would give me the edge because he's kind of chubby. He's a big guy, and I'm relatively fit compared to him. But regardless of that, he fucks. But again, we're both in the same, in close to the same level in terms of looks, more or less. But I decided, I analyzed the game and I knew it's not going to work out for me. I better just take myself out the game until I see a good opportunity. He didn't do that. He said, fuck it, I'm playing the game. And now look where he's at. And my point here is that most people would never appreciate what I avoided. I could have been just like him. I could have been just like my friend. I could have went out here and said, fuck it. I'ma fuck these fat, sloppy bitches that like me. I'ma fuck these girls that look like dudes that like me. I've gotten that too. Right? I could have said, fuck it. I'ma fuck these things. But I didn't. And my life is relatively stress-free. I'm very content. I'm happy. I'm free. More than anything, I'm free. And my friend, I mean, it's like, it's really pathetic the shit he's going to. I'm so disappointed in him. But this is what happens when you don't avoid bad options. But like I said, they don't appreciate it. And here's why. When you don't engage with those options, people can't see those options. All they see is a man alone claiming to be fine. When you don't engage with bad options, people can't see those options. All they see is a man alone claiming to be fine. But now look, when you do engage with these options and you become a statistic, then they look at you and they say, look at this dumbass nigga with his fat wife, right? Look, another dumbass nigga with a fat bitch, 3 kids, he's stressed out, right? And see, that's why you can't win. Because when you don't engage, they don't see the options that you have. But when you do, you become a statistic like my friend. When you don't engage with options, people can't see the options. And so to them, the only explanation can be that these men are just a bunch of coping fools. And that's why people have the perception that MGTOW was a cope, because as an average guy, when you don't engage with the bad options that are available to you, it looks like you have no options. When you right now, as I speak, I have no options, right? No girls care about me right now. But I've had options. I've had opportunities. Anybody that know me knows I can get bitches, right? Now, again, they might be fat gorilla, right? But options are options. We're not debating the quality of options. We're not debating why my options are bad. That's a separate argument. And I would give you that argument. But you cannot say that a man is coping for not engaging with bad options. You simply can't say that. And so what I think and what I hope is that these guys, because, you know, people like Weak Waffle, he's obviously a fairly intelligent young man. And so I hope that the argument that, like, I hope that they realize that they have a point to be made, but they're making the wrong one. Regardless of what you believe, you can't say that a man is coping for not engaging with bad options. I can understand why you would think that a man doesn't have options, because like I said, when you're average and you don't settle for sub 5 gorilla hoes, it does look like you don't. It's inevitable. But I think I'm the perfect example of a guy who chose not to engage with those options, but clearly has had opportunities and clearly could make something happen if I was willing to lower my standards and sell my soul for pussy like most niggas do. Right? And that's the whole point that I'm trying to make. I think these guys, they have a point, but they're making the wrong one. It's not that MGTOW is a cope, but that guys who go their own way more than likely big part of the reason why is because they're simply not attractive enough to have good options. If that's the argument you want to make, then I can't argue against that, right? Because there are certain limitations that you have as a man as far as like the quality and quantity of female dating options that you have. And sometimes you have a hard limit that you can't surpass because of like your genetics, finances and whatnot, shit like that. And so I would give these guys that any day of the week. But I'm just saying you can't say that a man is coping when he's choosing not to engage with bad options, right? That's just a completely inaccurate argument to make. But again, if you want to say that, okay, your options are bad because you're an incel or because you're not attractive enough to have good options, that's a sound argument, right? But again, I think that it still doesn't undermine the idea of MGTOW, because obviously, why would you be going your own way in the first place unless your options were bad? I mean, I think so. That's kind of, it's a given that your options are bad in the first place if you're going your own way, because Chads tend not to go their own way. They have high quality and high quantity of options. They're easy to engage with, and most men simply wouldn't turn that down, right? And that's my argument. But I want to say it just one more time, just to close this out, because I think it's profound and it really shuts down this bullshit. When you don't engage with bad options, people can't see those options. All they see is a man alone claiming to be fine. So the only explanation can be that this man is a coping fool.